We are ready to go. What is today's date? January 19th. All right. It is January 19th, 2018. I'm Micah Sargent, and right now we are going to talk about that iMessage text bug, that pesky bug. Tim Cook talking about how there's going to be an update for iPhone Slow, App Store listings getting an update, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp maybe crossing our fingers, and also we have special guest Russell Holly to talk about some exciting new stuff, because this is the iMore Show. Joining me this week is, of course, I've already spoiled it, Russell Holly. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, it's awesome to come back.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. And of course, the, I think, cornerstone of the iMore podcast at this point, the one and only Lori Gill, kicking butt and taking names. How you doing, Lori?
I'm doing good, thanks. Yeah, I think since I started on this show, I've only missed 2, maybe 3 episodes, and they've always been because I was at Disneyland. So, you know.
So we know where your priorities lie. It's like Disney and then iMore listeners.
And then
that's
iMore.
Good.
And don't think that I wouldn't try to podcast from Disneyland if I thought it was possible at all.
That's what we need to have happen in the future. Like, we're going to figure this out. A mobile setup.
Be a way.
Yeah, some noise cancellation probably, but it would be nice to get some of that ambiance, that magical ambiance.
You see Mickey Mouse walking behind in the video, waving at the camera.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I do have to, I want to brag really quickly. I just got I don't know if it's pronounced Lifex or Lifex. I've always pronounced it Lifex. But behind me, you might notice some pretty colors being painted if you're watching the screen. That's because I just got the Lifex strip that's been updated with HomeKit support. And let me tell you, I am loving it, because the special thing about this one is that instead of the Philips Hue strip, which only does one color across the whole strip, this one actually has zones. And so I've been having fun. I'm going to try to pop in here. There are different themes. And so right now I'm going to click on the theme called, let's go with Powerful. And you'll notice the colors start to shift behind me. And now it's like this nice red color. And I'll do one more here, Cheerful, which shows these red leaves. And I think it's meant to sort of evoke a nice fall feeling. So I've been having so much fun with this new light painting switch, or rather strip. And especially when the lights are off, just having it go through. And there are some fun effects as well, including one called Spooky that has it sort of flicker over time and then shut off and then turn on again. So there are plenty of fun different settings you can do. And there you can see it sort of flashing in the background.
Yeah.
As well as some built-in effects for like music visualization and stuff. So
that's so fun.
Yeah, I think it's an improvement on what Philips Hue does with their strip, which again is just like a one color thing. It's nice, but to have these multiple colors is really cool. Okay, we should definitely break into things now that I've had a chance to brag about my new light strip. Russell, what are you here to talk to us about? I saw a GIF, or GIF if you pronounce it that way, or if you're Renee Ritchie, of this really cool like robot cardboard thing that involved the Nintendo Switch. I don't know anything about it other than that, and I'm already excited. So what's going on?
Yeah, so Nintendo dropped this teaser earlier this week. They said we're gonna make this. We have this big announcement coming for kids, or people who are kids at heart, and it led to an entire day of rampant speculation as to what it is that could possibly be announced. And it turns out that what they had in mind was a series of cardboard boxes.
It's like, for cats.
Not even kidding. This is a pair of DIY kits. That they're calling Toy-Cons instead of Joy-Cons, and
clever name.
Yes, very clever name. And they're kits that you assemble yourself, and you interact. You put the Nintendo controllers, in these kits in one way or another, and it creates this kind of interactive experience on the screen. Either with the Nintendo Switch in its undocked form. In the case of the piano, there's this mini piano where the screen kind of sits in this little cardboard piano, and you when you press the cardboard buttons, the sound of a piano comes out of the Nintendo Switch. And
what?
From a hardware perspective,
really cool.
It's really clever because it's actually using the infrared on the Joy-Cons to detect which of the cardboard pieces are being pressed down. So that was really kind of nerdy cool, on top of just being a neat little cardboard musical instrument. But there's also a full body robot suit that is made of cardboard that kids are expected to wear and have this this like helmet that they wear. And when they punch with the cardboard robot kit, the robot on the screen in the game throws the exact same punch. So the kid gets to like stomp around and march with this weird cardboard suit on. And as they play the game, you know, it interacts with this on the screen. And
so based on the video, it's not just your hand movement, because that's what the Joy-Cons already do. Like you can use motion control, but there's some kind of string attached to the feet.
That goes through
is the part that I
like
think is really cool.
On the back. Yeah.
And so your controller knows, even you don't have controllers on your feet. They're actually, one's on the backpack and one's on the arm. And when you stomp, one of the controllers is recognizing the movement of your feet. So I don't know for sure how this works, but it looks like the game will recognize your foot movement as well as your arm movement. Yeah. So it's pretty impressive.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of just kind of bizarrely interactive and really kind of delightful looking things. And it was hilarious to look at all of this, because it's the kind of thing that, like, Nintendo is the only company on the planet that would do something like this, you know, to you know, make something like this for kids to just kind of have fun with. And the initial reaction was just overwhelmingly positive. It seemed like it was really just, you know, kind of people having fun with this whole idea. But there's going to be two different kits. They're priced at $70 and $80, which sounds like a lot given what I just described was cardboard boxes. But there's two things to keep in mind. The first is that the one kit is actually 5 different of these little kits that you get to assemble. And then both of them actually come with the game that you go to play. And the average game for the Switch is around $50 anyway. So even if these were just games that you went and made yourself, the price isn't really all that far off from that. But it was really impressive to see this kind of initial demonstration. And I'm super bummed that we don't actually get to touch this until the end of April.
What? Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
we
April
have to
20th.
wait so long.
These don't ship until April 20th. But you can pre-order them now. And from the reaction that I have seen so far, if you're even remotely curious, you probably should pre-order them.
I'm sort of happy this didn't come out on April 1st, because this is like one of those things where you sort of are like, is this real? And I'm so glad it's actually real.
Yeah, and so the gift that you're talking about, it was another example of just this really kind of, you know, funny, clever thing. They took the 2 Joy-Cons and put them on either side of this little cardboard looking insect, and made it a bristle bot, you know, where the vibrations from the Joy-Cons are actually moving the little stick, you know, robot around. And bristle bots are something you can get on, you know, in any toy store for, you know, $1. And they're these little tiny, you know, fingerprint size things that'll scuttle around. But this gives you, like, you hold the tablet part of the Switch in hand and you actually get some control over moving this little insect around.
Yeah, that one has that cute little, like a RC car style remote on it. So it has like a little cardboard antenna. There's no need for the antenna, but it's there because it's cute. It's so ingenious too. It's not just cardboard. It's, you know, like if you were making the comparison to, say, Google Cardboard, which is literally, like, you can make those at home. They even have schematics online that you can use. But what's so special about these things that Switch is bringing out, there's all kinds of mechanics going on inside too. There's these strings and rubber bands that you attach so that, you know, when you move one thing, something else is moving. So it's intricate and detailed, but also simple enough for kids to play, you know, to help set up. I don't think that there are certain age kids and certain smarts kids that could probably do it without help from their parents, but it's definitely geared toward parents and kids coming together and playing together and making things together that end up being a toy that the kids can play with, and I'm sure the parents can play with too.
And like some of these kits, like they're not, you know, you reference Google Cardboard as this really simple, you know, kind of box thing that gets assembled. The piano in particular, you look at the photos that Nintendo has taken, this is really detailed, like incredibly intricate, where you're you know, kind of folding each one of these keys and assembling it on the board. This is a lot more than you would get from you know, kind of your average arts and crafts style cardboard project kit. And I'm really curious about the durability, and so were a whole bunch of other people, because the 3D printer community exploded at this announcement. They cannot wait to get a hold of the designs and make it so that people can actually print plastic permanent versions of some of these kits. so that they are a little more durable. And that I think is going to be pretty exciting.
That's going to be really fun. Yeah, I think I look forward to day one of the official product launch, where people have them in their house and all those crumpled up, rounded toys that don't look anything like the original picture. Because we're all going to be doing that. We're going to be mashing the cardboard trying to get it to fold up right. It's going to be pretty fun.
I love that, like, what we've essentially done is, like, take humans and, like, their cat counterparts, get them into, like, cardboard boxes. Essentially, it's pretty funny to me. But it's so Nintendo, like Nintendo, the quirky, fun, almost adorable nature of the company, I think fits so well with this idea. And, like, I don't know, there is something sort of charming about being able to play with something as recyclable, I guess. That's not really the word I'm looking for. I can't think of the word, but it's just cardboard, but look what I can do with it. It's really neat.
Yeah. And I think we all, well, I don't know, maybe not some of the younger generations who have had smartphones in their house since the day when they were born. But for me, I played with cardboard boxes all the time when I was a kid. Like, you build your little house out of cardboard and your pretend car out of cardboard. So, like, it's just kind of taking that thing that we did as children and turning it into, like, a working toy that interacts with your technology, which is a really good combination. I think right now I'm seeing a lot of sort of sentiment toward going back to analog, going back to, getting away from digital and, like, kind of re-experiencing real world stuff. And the toy cons are this sort of perfect combination, because you can try to convince your kids to go outside and play, but they're still going to want to play video games, or they're still going to want to bring their iPod or something like that with them. And this combines both the physical world and the digital world to allow them to play video games, but also lets them interact with physical toys and with their families.
Yep, totally agree.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I'm pretty excited about it. And I definitely can't wait to see how the 3D printing world takes to this, because Nintendo, like Apple, is what you would call the walled garden. They don't make it easy to hack into things. They don't provide, free software for you to make your own. Though, if they did something like that and they let people program games and cardboard things, that would be so cool. If you could just create your own cardboard whatever and share that with the community, it'd be really awesome. I don't know how that would be possible for Nintendo to do that while still being able to protect their software, but if it could work, it would be really cool.
I think one of my favorite things about this is, like, when the Nintendo Switch was first sort of being put out there and people were talking about what it was going to be, and then eventually we saw what it was going to be, there were so many quirky, fun, like, milking the cow simulators and rolling around marbles in a box and all these different things. And then it sort of, for me, those were the things that were most interesting to me. I didn't care about, like, major games or anything like that. I think the quirky, fun stuff is really cool. And then it sort of fell into, okay, now we're releasing Zelda, and now we're releasing Mario, and now we're releasing all these games that you sort of come to expect, and it's just a console that you take with you everywhere. And for this to come out, it was like, that is the quirky stuff that I love about this company. And I'm so glad that they sort of had this in development, and potentially, like, what comes next. Because it's just so brilliant to use the vibrations of the controller to move around a little insect looking dealy. It's fun. And I think it gets kids interested in, physics and things like that, as opposed to just sitting down and playing Zelda. They're, like, building little contraptions and learning about robotics and things like that. And also just getting them to think out of the box a little bit too. So yeah,
out of the cardboard box.
Out of the cardboard box. But so that, like, doubles down, I think, on what you were saying. It would be so nice if there was a bit of a developer deal where you could go in and make your own sort of creations and make use of the sensors and vibrations and all that kind of stuff. Because again, that's, like, another place for kids to get super into that thing and potentially learn. So yeah, it's all very nifty, and I'm mostly just happy that Nintendo didn't just say, here's this thing, the console, and then here are the games that you like to play, and then be done with it. Like, it's continuing to be added to and made better. So I hope that everybody, like at Christmas time or whatever gift giving holidays you celebrate, has a box with a box inside of it. It's just you're like your backpack and everything.
I think the coolest thing about this whole quirky experience is that Nintendo has done their best to express this over a spectrum. Like you said, when the console first launched, we saw this like demo box basically of all of these weird little things that you could do with the Joy-Cons, and that from that point, like all of the controller stuff that is open to developers. Developers can build other games where it's just kind of like party games. Like I would love to see an almost Mario Party style thing where it was all just kind of silly things that you could do, but then they also took and put it in their normal kind of quote unquote serious games too. I think one of the funniest things about Super Mario Odyssey is that there's an entire aspect of the game where you have to pay really close attention to the vibration in the controllers as you move around, because there are secrets in each one of the levels, based on you paying attention to how the controller is behaving. So if the controller starts buzzing, you have to actually move around slowly, like a heat map, basically, like to do stuff. And so now we're seeing the farther end of that, where these are like full-on accessories, but it's the controller doing all of the heavy lifting. Like it's all stuff that's built into these weird controllers that have something that Renee and I talked about when they first launched this, was that it's the only other product that has kind of Apple-like tech in it. When it comes to like vibration motors, the HD rumble system in the Nintendo Switch, it feels in so many different ways like the Taptic engine in Apple's whole system. And it's so cool to see so many just downright whimsical ways of use. And it almost makes me grumpy that we don't see this kind of use in things like our phones.
Right. Yeah, these quirky ways, and like you'd think it'd be. I mean, developers have the opportunity to make use of some of those things, and it would be cool if I could have similar apps on iOS. So like the closest we've had to that is Apple's own app in GarageBand, where you can sort of differentiate between the keys, and the harder you hit on it, the louder the sound is, etc.
Well, and there was a third-party one back when I think it was the iPhone 4, where you set because it was when the iPhone was still flat on the bezels, and it used the vibration in the phone to take a panorama.
Oh,
it actually vibrated the phone in a 360-degree circle. So it took a 360-degree panorama, but it only worked with that phone because that phone was flat enough that you could set it down. I guess clever. It would still also work with the iPhone SE now, but yeah. So like that was the only other time that I had seen something like that work.
Yeah, like making use of the vibrations that are inside the technology that we already have. It is like it's something that is not being explored enough. I think maybe partly because Apple has done it so well that nobody is thinking, well, I could do something better or more interesting, because it really is already, it works really well. But that's true. It would be really cool to just have an app or a game like that had more than just a little bit of a rumble here and there, but that really made use of the Taptic engines and made things feel more realistic. Yeah.
I think we may actually see more of that as we get into some of the ARKit apps. I was actually playing earlier this week with a game called Dark, as an ARKit app that it really kind of scared me at first, because it opens this like Stranger Things style rift in front of you, and you kind of walk through it, and then everything is like all of these weird floaty particles that are like walking around you as though you have stepped into another dimension.
Wow!
It gave me a lot of like Silent Hill vibes, where it's like, this would be a really good opportunity to have like weird zoned audio, where if I'm walking near this thing and then like I hear radio static, or my phone starts vibrating or something like that. So I feel like those kind of explorations we're finally starting to see developers start to play with. So I'm hoping that we do actually get more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm going to have to download that app and check it out for sure.
Is this something that is available to the public right now? Is it?
Yeah. It's called Dark, and the A and the R in Dark are capitalized just to really drive that
perfect.
point home. So But it's fun. It's a fun like whole story AR kit game. You need a little bit of room to do it, so you can't just like be in a weird hallway or something. But yeah, I had some fun with it.
Cool.
So in other words, you should go out to a dark park where where it's just you.
Go wander
alone.
around in a public place. It definitely won't look weird.
Are the A and the R in park also capitalized?
In my park, yeah. I mean, you know.
Your park was built for it. Well, do we have any last thoughts on Nintendo's latest cardboard creations, or shall we move on?
No, just that if you want to see a little more, Lori and I both have been banging on about it pretty much constantly over on iMore. So
and I'm guessing that Russell already has his pre-order in, so the moment he gets his hands on it, we'll get to see how to put it together and how hard it was or how easy it was.
Explaining to my partner how much money I spent on cardboard boxes yesterday was exciting.
Well, let's move on and talk about something sort of annoying. Like as long as the iPhone has, well, no, as long as phones have been around, there have been people coming up with ways to cause you problems, like ways to make your phone freeze or shut down or restart or continue to restart, or in some cases have the AI, the machine learning built into your phone, change letters into other letters. There's a bunch of annoyances, and something called ChaiOS bug, or just called ChaiOS, is a way to freeze your phone by sending you a link to this. Because the interesting thing about iOS, and maybe this is the thing in certain Android messaging apps as well, but in iOS, you'll load message previews. And so when this link gets popped over to your phone, it loads a message preview and it causes your phone to freeze up. What's annoying, we should definitely, break into this after this, but what's annoying is like the original tweet that talked about this. It's like, yeah, here's this thing that I did, and by the way, if you text it to your recipient, it's going to cause it to freeze and maybe restart it. And then it's like, oh, and don't use it for bad stuff. And then it's like, it's out there in the wild now, so anybody can use it, and just saying don't use it for bad stuff doesn't mean anything.
Even if you aren't trying to use it for bad stuff, a bunch of people tried it. They were like, oh, I bet that doesn't work. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Oh, no one texted it to me.
Yeah, I know, me too.
I know far too many people who the very first thing they would have done just to make sure that it was real, not to test it to themselves, to send it to their 5 closest friends.
Yep.
And,
hey, check your phone. Tell me if this worked.
Right.
Oh, well, I can't respond to you because you just froze my phone. It's so annoying. But yeah, that was interesting.
As like a side note, we like security people. You need to watch your business about how you name some of this stuff. Okay. I don't need my bugs making me want to go to Starbucks.
We're named after precious things we care about.
Right. And like we've had a lot of this like recently where the big Spectre bug that hit everything. The little icon that someone made for Spectre is this adorable little blue ghost. No, that's the wrrong message. Okay, we need to
look at this ghost. I want to play Pac-Man. And like this, and this one here, the way that if you're curious how this all breaks down, essentially, as I mentioned, you get a preview link in your iMessage app whenever you get this link. Well, this is such a Captain Obvious moment that sort of makes you wonder why there were no protections in place for this, because all it does is inside of the character sort of breakdown that gets sent to the phone that gets read, they put hundreds of thousands of characters into it. And so the iMessage thing is trying to generate a preview, but it's got all this data that's trying to load, and then it freezes your phone. The OS is expecting, a little summary, a little image link, and a headline maybe. And this bad boy has hundreds of thousands of characters in it, and the phone's like, whoa, 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 I did not expect all of this, and then it causes the issue. So, a lot of times it's only going to freeze their phone for a few minutes, and then it should restart. But the great thing is Apple is going to be issuing an update, and there's a fix currently in the works, and we'll see.
And the original stuff has been taken down, right? So it's
good.
Yeah, it does. As far as I know, I think the GitHub page hosting the code vulnerability has been taken down, and the original poster's Twitter account was suspended.
Oh, wow.
So there's already been things that have gone into place. Unfortunately, though, because the internet,
yeah, it's hosted somewhere else, I'm sure.
Someone else probably has access to it. What I wonder, though, this is something like, what protection could be in place to stop that? I mean, like, would Apple have thought, would the researchers at Apple have thought, we need to make sure that there's a, extra code just in case somebody sends 100,000 words in one small
I think it's reasonable to limit it. I think it's reasonable to say, well, whenever it's pulling from a website, because we care about users, like if they're on mobile or something like that, we don't want to, clog up use a bunch of their data to load a page. So we'll stop like the package at blah, blah, blah kilobytes, or we'll stop literally like the amount of characters that can load in each of those different metadata sequences. Cause it's like, it pulls an image tag, it pulls the description tag, it pulls the headline tag. So maybe the description tag doesn't get to be longer than 120 ASCII characters or ASCII characters, etc. I think that's a reasonable protection to put into place. But, at the same time, yeah, I don't think that developers should think this way, but like, people who aren't developers should, in theory, think like, we expect good of humans and humans will do good things and they won't try to crash people's phones. But developers should not be thinking that way. Like, they've got to be a bit jaded, I think, and just say, yeah, someone's going to try to cause this to break, so we should not let it load that many characters.
Yeah.
Well, but it's also, sorry, go ahead.
I definitely don't think that we should blame any, developer for not putting those restrictions in place, just because, like, you can't think of everything, right? It's like when you baby-proof your house and your baby still manages to eat your Tide Pods. You just can't put all those protections in place, right?
The Tide Pod protection.
You do what you can, and then when the new problem arises, you just face it and then you fix it, right? Like, that's...
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of really complicated ways that this gets really interesting. The first is that not every language handles data transmission the same way. So, like, you think about how much physical space a sentence in, say, Japanese takes up on a piece of paper instead of as opposed to English, and converting that to data is often very different. Because the amount of information that's being sent is the same, and then it has to be when it comes to something like iOS, the information is often parsed and translated like before it hits you. So a lot of that information, it's complicated to look at it that way, and say, kind of, how do we stop a certain amount of information, because it's difficult for the machine to tell how much of it is useful at first, to do things like translate language and things like that. It's also really weird. Anytime there's a messaging application, regardless of what platform it's on or how it's made, that interacts with SMS, there's a whole set of rules that iMessage has to follow no matter what, in order to make sure that SMS messages are delivered in the exact way that they are sent. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not sure if that has anything to do with how this works, but it wouldn't shock me, because like, if you go back and you look at the history of SMS, it's this weird broken format that we kind of brute forced into being a messaging service. It was actually never designed to be so. And so there's a lot of weird legacy stuff that goes into how an SMS message is delivered, and guaranteeing that message is delivered, because you're then playing by, like, all of the carriers are basically all playing by the same rules when it comes to how that gets sent. And so anytime you have a messaging app, across anything that's not like one device to another, it's already kind of complicated when you're dealing with things like languages. But once you get to iMessage level complicated, where you have to interact with SMS messages and all different media formats and things like that, it's more than a little complicated to predict this kind of thing from being a problem.
Yeah.
Well put.
It's time for us to talk about something we love.
Oh, yes, it is time to talk to you all about something we love. And of course, we love our good pals at Thrifter, as Renee Ritchie was always wont to say. And let me tell you a little bit about Thrifter. Thrifter is a new way, but at this point, probably a familiar way to save money on everything from gadgets to home goods by shopping based on value and not hype. I like to say all the stuff and none of the fluff. If you sign up at thrifter.com, you're going to get thoughtfully selected tech deals from places like Amazon and Best Buy every single day. And it will be easy to find those deals and get exactly what you're looking for. So Valentine's Day is coming up, and right now on Amazon, there is a $15 101-piece Wilton cookie cutter set that you can use to make little heart cookies and little stars and all these different things. It's usually $15. It's $10. Let me tell you something. I used to be a semi-professional baker. I made like Cake Boss cakes and cookies and all these things for people. And Wilton was my go-to for all of my cake making supplies, all of my cookie making supplies. Wilton is fantastic. They pretty much lead the charge on all sorts of cake decorating. So a 101-piece Wilton cookie cutter set for only $10 is a fabulous deal. Also, a regular deal that they have on Thrifter that you should absolutely take advantage of is gift cards that often have some sort of discount. So you can get like, there's literally one today, a $100 iTunes gift card for $90. You get $10 off, you get $10 free. You can spend that on, you know, an app or something that you really want, or in-app purchases on Animal Crossing Pocket Camp.
Actually, so far I haven't needed in-app purchases. So.
Lori, you're so good. I am an impatient individual. And there are plenty of other awesome deals. You can just go to thrifter.com and get those, but you could also sign up and get those deals sent to you as well. So again, Thrifter is a new way to save money on everything from gadgets to home goods, as I mentioned, by shopping based on value and not hype. None of those silly deals that don't actually mean anything, where things say they're marked down to $4, but really they cost the company like 50 cents to make. No. This is value-based deals. So go to thrifter.com. You're going to get thoughtfully selected tech deals from Amazon and Best Buy and so many other places. It's all the stuff, none of the fluff, at thrifter.com.
Oh, to talk about the subject matter that we have been talking about right now, Nintendo's Labo kit, that's the Toy-Cons, the cardboard Toy-Cons, at Best Buy, they're discounted by 20%. So you can get the variety kit, which comes with 5 different toys to make, for only $56. So that's a nice deal. Find it on Thrifter.
There you go. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Some of you have heard, probably many of you who are listening to this have heard about that pesky iPhone slow story. So if you're wondering what the heck that is, first of all, you could just do a Google search for hashtag iPhone slow and find way too many articles about it. But essentially what it is older phones with older batteries the performance is being throttled by iOS. So the idea is that as batteries age, they don't have as much capacity in them, they don't work as well. And if things just sort of ran how they ran, then your phone could potentially shut down, it could get super slow, there could be all these different issues. And so Apple built in a little process in iOS that looks at the health of the battery, and if it matches up with whatever this bad health is, or not so great health, non-optimal health, then it will slow down your phone so that your phone doesn't end up shutting down and things like that. Well, Apple didn't really put this out there like many say it should have, and because of that, there's been a bit of a blowback about this. Apple then came out with a $29 battery replacement deal where you could take in your older phone and get a new battery for $29. And now Tim Cook says that in a future version of iOS, they're actually going to give you the option to disable this throttling. So again, there could be the issue where you're playing a game on iOS, you're walking through the dark room that Russell was talking about, and suddenly your phone shuts down because the battery's not great inside of it. But you have that option now. This is sort of unprecedented, Lori, for Apple in giving users domain over this sort of feature in their phone. I think Apple likes to sort of not let you fool around with it because they want to help.
They know best.
Yeah, or Apple feels it knows best at least.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what do you think about this? Do you think this is something that Apple would have done if not for the negative press?
Absolutely not. I think as long as the iPhone has existed, people have been accusing Apple of doing something to the software to make their phones not last very long. None of that was true. But the battery slowdown, which is actually to protect your iPhone and to make it last longer, was a good thing, but it sounds like a bad thing, right? It sounds you've purposefully made my phone slow down. That sounds bad.
Mhm.
They're not thinking past that first sentence, which is you purposely made my phone slow down so that my battery will last longer, so that if I'm stuck out in the middle of nowhere, it doesn't just completely shut down. Nobody seems to want to go to that second sentence or the second part of the sentence. But the cat got out of the bag, and that confirmed everyone's suspicion, which is Apple is doing something to make my phone not work as good. Again, not true, but that's the way people are seeing it. They're looking at it from this perspective of everything I thought Apple was doing is true. They broke my phone on purpose. That's kind of the idea. I see so many comments now saying things like, I think Apple is slowing down my iPad too. I think Apple is slowing down my 2016 MacBook Pro now. You know, just because you're having a slow day on your computer doesn't mean Apple is purposefully breaking it. It is so over the top now that there is nothing they can do except implement some user option to help with this. Like Russell was on the iMore show when this first broke, and we had a conversation about it. I think that it would have made so much sense for Apple to actually present this as a positive when they first were going to be putting it in phones in iOS 10.3 or 10.3.2 or whenever it was when they first put that into phones. That should have been presented. Guess what, everybody? We've added this really cool feature to phones so that if your phone is older and your battery isn't running at 100%, it's going to run better. It's going to last longer. You're not going to have shutdowns. Present that to me, and then I'm not going to be mad at Apple for slowing down my phone. I will say, oh, my phone is running a little bit slower. My battery must be getting old. Thank goodness Apple put this thing in my phone so that my battery doesn't die on me unexpectedly. But because they didn't present it to us this way, they have to do something to make the public feel more comfortable and feel like they can trust them again. And honestly, even with this on-off switch in place, it's still not going to be, it's going to be really hard for Apple to come back from this one because what we're seeing is a lot of people there. Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of people accusing Apple of breaking their products in order to make them buy new stuff. It's bigger than it ever was before. So, yeah.
So what's your take on this follow-up idea with Tim Cook sort of going on the press tour? I don't know if any of you have seen. Oh goodness, I can't even think of what the show is. The Orville, but there is an episode of the Orville where they live in this future society that's sort of like Reddit, and so it's sort of like an episode of Black Mirror as well. But they can get voted up or get voted down, and if they get voted down enough, then they have to go on this apology tour around the world, and basically at the end they suffer either a death sentence or they get to live, depending on if they can do well in this this press tour. And instead of having lawyers, you have PR people who you hire to sort of help you live. And I see this as the same kind of thing. Like anytime this happens, there are a bunch of thumbs downs going at Apple. And so the different leaders go around and say, okay, let's see what we can do. So Russell, what are your thoughts on sort of how Apple's handling this now, and even just, following the first breaking news of all of this?
I think the on-off switch is the right decision, and I think coming out and saying, yes, this is what we're doing is the right way to do this. The initial interviews that we've seen from Tim Cook so far on this bug me a little, because he starts off the explanation by saying, look, we told people we were going to do this. Look, dude, you put a line in a changelog. You did not tell people you were going to do this. Those are not the same thing, and you definitely know better. So I take some issue with that, but I feel like it's just being blown wildly out of proportion. And I feel like there's probably a way to just kind of ignore this, and it will in fact go away at some point now, like after this change is made. And like, I don't think we're going to have any more people shouting about Apple making their phones slow next year than we did this past year. Like, I don't think that this event is going to cause the amount of people who say that to increase or decrease. I think that that's going to be a constant. And anyone who says, look, I have proof, and they point to this thing, it's, you know, there is enough actual information out there to combat that. So I don't think it's going to be a huge problem as far as Apple, you know, earning people's trust, but it is frustrating to see instead of an actual apology, well, maybe we should have explained this better. Well, maybe you should have explained it
at all.
Yeah, you should have explained it back whenever you first put it out there.
It's so true. Yeah. Again, I think this is the same conversation we had, a month or so ago, which is, it was such a bad decision on Apple's part to not make it clear and transparent that they were doing this. And they could have spun it as a great feature, but instead they just, like Ruskell said, put it in one sentence in a change log so people didn't notice it and didn't figure it out or look into it. So now, this is what's happening. And you might be right, Russell. What is true is that people are always going to accuse Apple of breaking their devices so that they will replace them because they're a popular company and they do put out new phones every year. Some people jump on that bandwagon and upgrade their phones every year. Others don't want to. Others want to keep their phones for as long as they possibly can. So there's always going to be a certain number of people that will throw out those accusations this year, next year, the year after that. But I believe that it's going to be worse. So after December 2018, Apple's, unless they change it, they're not going to offer a $29 battery replacement. So everyone who has the iPhone 7, let's say, which is still, I have the iPhone 7 Plus and it feels like a brand new phone, even though we've moved on to the iPhone 8 Plus and 10 at this point. So in 2019, are people with the iPhone 7 going to accuse Apple of breaking their phones? And is Apple going to continue some sort of $29 battery replacement? How is this going to play out? Because now that we've kind of been presented with this situation where Apple didn't make it clear what they were doing to help protect our phone batteries, it's going to make a lot of people untrustworthy. I don't think it's going to make anyone stop buying iPhones, but it's going to make them complain about it and try to get, some kind of deal out of it. So
I think it's interesting because it partially requires this. When it comes to sort of how this news gets out there, there's a certain period of time where the big things do break into mainstream news. And so it's sort of like, it is Belgraph, yeah. Where it does break out into mainstream news at its like zenith. And then afterward, it drops out of that news. And we who are more in tune to this kind of stuff continue to hear about it, but it falls out of the basic everybody's knowledge. And so I think that right now there's a period of time where everybody's aware of it. And then there will come a period of time where people who maybe are not as knowing as we are, but people who, are big on their phones. Like my little brother is an example of this. He likes to get a new phone every year if he can. And he knows just enough to be dangerous in that way, where he would be I don't think in this situation, because he's got his older brother who's like, no, let me explain this to you. But he's the type that falls in that area of people who know just enough to where they would complain about it. But I think someone like my mom, she's too worried about other things to even be thinking about how her phone is slowing down. My grandma had an iPhone 3G, not even with an S, for as long as the phone's been out. She only just recently upgraded, and she upgraded to a 5C. So it's for her, you look, I could walk up to her and say, did you know that Apple, that the iOS is actually slowing things down? She'd be like, oh, I just use email on this and occasionally send you GIFs, so everything's fine. And yes, you better believe I taught her to say GIFs and not GIFs. Thank you. So, so yeah, I think that you're both right, is what I'm saying, because I'm a diplomat, doggone it, and I will make sure everybody can be right. Any last thoughts on that before we move on to an interesting change to the way that the online App Store works? And again, something that those of us who end up clicking App Store links on our computers are happy about, because by golly, I sure was annoyed with iTunes opening every couple of seconds. So last thoughts, or are we good to move on?
Move on. Move on. Let's stop talking about that stupid battery slowdown.
Lori, tell us a little bit more about what Apple has done with. Well, first, give users a background, I think, about what happened with the App Store on macOS and in iTunes in particular, and then sort of what's changed and what we're seeing now.
So, God, I don't remember when it happened. Sometime around the drop of iOS 11, but maybe a little before, maybe a little bit after. I don't remember exactly when. Apple removed the App Store from iTunes on macOS. For me personally, for some people, they were happy with that because it makes the interface of iTunes cleaner, and I totally understand that, because it's an ugly mess, and especially when there's all these other stores mixed in with iTunes, it's confusing. But I used iTunes, the iTunes App Store, every single day. It's how I browsed and discovered new apps. Mm-hmm. Never on my phone, never on my iPad, always on my Mac. And they took that away from me.
It was early September, by the way. Early September.
Okay, so it was just before the drop of macOS High Sierra and iOS 11, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So at the same time, removing that from iTunes, they hadn't updated the online listing of apps to stop trying to redirect to iTunes. So if you tried to search for an app on Safari on your Mac, let's say, the first thing that would happen is it would try to open iTunes, but there's no App Store in iTunes on Mac anymore. So it would just kind of like sit there reloading for a couple of seconds, and then it would finally load the App Store listing online, which it's okay, but there's no browsing, there's no discovery. You have to go find the specific link that you want. And at the same time, the interface was, years old at this point. I never even really noticed. That's the way it always looked. So I didn't really think much about the design of it. It certainly was, I don't know, iOS 8 looking, it had a very old look to it. Old in terms of technology. Well, yesterday afternoon sometime, I'm not even sure exactly when it happened because it just surprised me. I was searching for an app and oh my goodness, the whole thing's been completely redesigned. So right now, everybody, if you're on a Mac, not on your phone, because there's no difference there, but on a Mac, go find an app to click on, like the iMore show, the iMore app, let's say. Click on that link and you'll see the complete changeover. It's beautiful. It looks pretty much exactly like it does on iOS. There's the rounded corners, the flat imagery. There's no longer the sidebar that shows little bits of information. Instead, it's a blog roll scroll down. So you have the icon and the name of the app, and then the screenshots, which look fantastic. And then below it, the description, and then below that, the version history, which again, this is not something that you used to be able to get the full version history on the online listing of an app. You got whatever the current change was. Now you can look back and see all of the history, all of the changes. I think it's all of it, because right now I'm looking at the iMore app and it goes all the way back to 2012. For some people that may not seem like a big deal, but for me, it's a really big deal. I like to know how many updates apps have had before I've downloaded them. Are they being kept up? Or does it seem like they're so buggy that they are getting too many updates? This is all really good information for me. And now you can look at that on macOS. Below the version history, there's customer reviews. You still can't see, right now you can see 3 customer reviews, and there's no way to get the full customer reviews online. That's still something Apple isn't providing. You can do it on iPhone and iPad, but you can't see more than 3 reviews on the online listing. And then at the bottom of the page, one of my favorite additions, they're including things, the links to other apps by that developer and other apps that you might be interested in. So there's a little bit of app discovery in there that wasn't before.
That's nice.
In the online listing. So it's not the app store that I loved on iTunes, but the fact that if you say search for the iMore app, you can actually look at other apps that are related to tech news. Oh, I also watch or read, 9 to 5. I'm going to click on that one too. So there's these additional discovery options there. So the update is great, and you're never going to have, it doesn't try to redirect you to a non-existent iTunes app store, which is probably the best thing for most people.
That ping-ponging was so annoying because essentially you'd try to open the link online, and then there's a little script that said, okay, let's pop open iTunes on your computer, and then we'll go to the page within iTunes. Well, that page, like iTunes knew that there was no more app store, so then it would pop you back to the link online, which would then say, oh, you need to be in iTunes. So it would happen about 3 times before the script was like, I guess it probably had a limit on it. And then you would finally be able to see it online. So you'd have like 3 tabs open and iTunes trying to load in the background. And iTunes is a behemoth of an app. And so it caused slowdown. It was nightmarish in the most first world problems kind of way. I hated it, and I'm so glad that that's over. And then also in the meantime, there was an update, so that's nice too.
Yeah. Russell, do you search for apps online at all? Do you care about this change, or do you only?
This is actually a pretty big deal to me because I split time between iOS and Android, and I do a ton in the Google Play Store from the browser, because it's like, Google has always had like the entire Play Store experience is in the browser. It's everything that you do on the phone, and it's a constant source of frustration for me when I remember that I want to grab something from my iPhone or from my iPad. That it's usually just easier for me to pick up the phone or the tablet and do that instead of using the browser. So it's a little different for me because I'm it's kind of a constant reminder. But I think I would probably have adapted to one workflow or the other if I was just using the iPhone. But yeah, it's definitely cool to have this option. I wish that we had a little bit of insight as to how many people wind up using it. It's probably not as high as Lori and I think it probably should be.
Or wish it would be.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a super good feature to have for people like us who are at a desk, at a browser already, and go, oh, hey, I want to do this thing. And so it's right there instead of having to go and stop what you're doing to go look through the phone.
Yeah, Russell, you have a good point. I'm sorry, Micah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, can you install from the browser now with the App Store previews?
Let's find out.
Because that is what I like about Google's way of doing things. Oh, see, that's so
the
nice.
app is only available in the App Store. Yeah. But you used to be able to do that. You used to be able to.
Yeah, in iTunes, once you did it on the iTunes App Store, then it would show up on your iPad and your iPhone. Apple, that's a serious. I'm upset.
Well, so to go off what Russell was saying, Apple did this for a reason. They probably, have the research that shows that nobody is browsing on their Mac for iPhone and iPad apps, or not enough to make it worth all the effort it takes to keep that maintained. So the update that they put out, which is a design change, and they've removed the automatic open of iTunes, I really think that's just a good on their part for developers, so that developers don't feel like they're getting completely shut out of Mac. But I bet there's just not enough people using their Mac to discover and download and access apps. They probably are doing it on their phone or their iPad.
A couple of things there. I think one, a little pro tip for anybody out there who does still do this, airdropping from your Mac to your iPhone or iPad with that link is the best way to go about it. But I also, we've heard rumor about Apple trying to sort of unify the code base between Mac OS, iOS, etc. And I could see a future where the Mac App Store on Mac OS just becomes the App Store, and it gives you the possibility to do what you used to be able to do in iTunes. So this could be Apple laying the groundwork for something in the future, and it's just an easy change to make right now while they're sort of in the process. Because I know people do, they may not care about Mac OS or like using Mac OS to install iTunes, or rather iOS apps, but I know people do care about being able to install tvOS apps using things like iOS, and like Apple TV is a platform that does sort of get that gripe where there's no easy way to share links to tvOS apps and things like that. So I think we're looking potentially at groundwork, hopefully, where the App Store is just the App Store regardless of which platform you're using. So hopefully that
would be great if I could open the Mac App Store and have separate tabs for iPhone, iPad, Mac, Apple TV right there on my Mac App Store.
And Apple Watch even.
An Apple Watch, that would be so great. I would love that. I would love to be able to. One of my like relaxing things to do is browse the App Store, find new games, find new apps. I just love looking at like what developers are coming up with, what's popular, what's trending, what new things come out. I love all that kind of stuff. And the App Store now on iPhone is so gorgeous.
The editorials and stuff that are in there.
Oh, they're the best. I love reading all of those articles of the interviews with developers, and it's so much fun.
I ended up buying, they had one around Christmas time that ranked the different versions of A Christmas Carol. And there's one that you can't get online unless you use nefarious ways, which I don't do. And I mean that honestly, I'm not just saying, I don't do that. And so I bought the DVD, and like, it's so funny because I haven't bought a DVD in ages. And I was like, do I even have a way to play this somehow? And I ended up pulling out my old Super Drive that I bought that plugs into the MacBook Pro so that I could rip it
just to
my
watch,
computer.
To watch that version. Do you remember who directed it at least?
It's the 1956. Hold on. Let me see if I can remember, because I actually, I have it here in my iTunes app. So let me wait for this to load for 12 hours. No, I'm kidding.
So while you're waiting for that to load, I did spend this last Christmas watching a bunch of different versions of A Christmas Carol, and I had so much fun. Some of them, there was two, I think one from 1946 and then one from 1970, I believe, that were directed by the same person. And it was so great to see. I mean, word for word, they were exactly the same. They were just acted out by different people and looked kind of different. And it was just so fun to like watch all these different versions of that movie.
So arguably, according to several people who know better than I do, the 1951 version of A Christmas Carol, where Alastair Sim plays Scrooge, and the director is Brian Desmond Hurst. That is supposed to be like the best portrayal. Alastair Sim's portrayal of Scrooge, and then his change over time over the course of the show is supposed to be, arguably the best. Plus, it's one of the more bleak versions. Like a lot of the more modern ones, and even ones farther in the past, they sort of didn't make things as scary as the original telling. And so this has like all of the bleakness, including the child that's all shriveled and all that kind of stuff. It really is superb. And like, I'm glad I ended up buying it. It wasn't that much money, but it was funny because it was after Christmas that I went online and found it and bought it. And so it arrived, and I was like, this feels a little weird watching this after Christmas, but it's just
January 15th and you're watching this.
But yeah, so I like the way that they've updated the App Store for iOS is nice, even though it's no longer as cool or as available as it used to be on macOS.
Yeah, and hopefully, I love this vision of our future where on Mac you have an app store that has all of the apps across all of the platforms, and I wouldn't even be sad to see that on iPhone and iPad, but especially on the Mac, I would love to see that multi-platform app store.
That would be nice, because I still use my Mac as sort of the central hub, and they've sort of undone that a little bit over time. So it would be nice to have that kind of come back. Well, why don't we round things out? If everybody wants to recommend an app or a service or an app that got an update or something that you're playing right now, let us all go around and announce something. I'm going to start. because I already have it pulled up. This is a fun and silly thing that came out. Google, well, didn't just come out, but the feature did. Google's Arts and Culture app. They originally launched this as a beta, or a demo rather, in the US, and so it only come out to certain users. They've since updated it to bring it out to more countries and things like that. But essentially what you do is with the Google Arts and Culture app, you take a selfie, and interestingly, they don't let you upload a photo from your camera roll or something like that. You have to take a live photo, or you can just pop one up on a display and snap a photo of it. But don't tell them I told you. And then it will search through the database of artworks that is in this, you know, sort of virtual museum, and show you different characters that you actually allegedly look like. And I got some pretty funny ones, but honestly, there was one that I think was could be like an ancient relative of mine.
Yeah.
And so there are some silly ones as well. I can't remember if I ended up. Oh, this one too. I thought that was pretty accurate. But yeah, it's sort of it's fun to just see. And you know, there are complaints about the fact that you're uploading a photo and blah 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 to Google. But so keep that in mind. You know, privacy is always a concern, and your personal data is a concern. So you know, if you upload this, then it is being processed by a server somewhere. But honestly, right now, as we're talking to you, like, this data is existing online and being processed. So it's one of those things. But yeah, there's my app. Go download the Google Arts and Culture app, and you could snap a photo of yourself or a friend. And it did not work on my dog. I'm real sad about it, but there weren't
There's
any
no dogs from ancient history
dog
that look
photos.
like your
Come
dogs.
on. At least not my chihuahuas. So yeah, let's go to Lori.
So Lifesum, all one word, Lifesum, is an app that's actually been around for a while. It's a calorie tracking app, but you know, it's January 2018, so now is the time for us to set those New Year's resolutions to eat better, lose weight, get healthy. They recently had an update that adds artificial intelligent image recognition. It's like not a hot dog, but it actually works. I swear to you. I've been using it for about 2 weeks now, and it blows my mind how well it captures things and recognizes them and presents them to you. Things like, these are like homemade meals that I would make at home, like fettuccine with chicken and a little piece of garlic toast on the side. It would actually, it'll capture that picture, and then it does some processing, and then it presents you with all these options: fresh pasta, Alfredo sauce, chicken, garlic toast, all of these options. And then you pick them, and you're like, that was my meal for the day. And then it assumes that you're basing your diet, what you're eating, off of a single serving. You can change that if you need to add more calories or take away some calories. But I was so impressed with how well it captured things that I thought, this can't possibly work. It's going to get it wrong. And at least 70% of the time, it got it right. There's a couple of times where, for example, I made turkey burgers and it didn't recognize that it was turkey. But how could it recognize that it was turkey? I just had to change that when that popped up. But it, would notice the chips that were on the side with the turkey burger. So, yeah, it's pretty incredible. And it's part of their premium service. So you can download Lifesum for free. And it's basically the same thing as MyFitnessPal when it comes to the food tracking stuff. It already has a huge database of foods that you can add that have calories. It has the barcode scanner, so you can scan the items that have like actual packaging on them. But then when you go out to a restaurant, if you're not going to a restaurant that's already in their database, like your local restaurant down the street, you can take a picture of your food and it will like bring up those calories for you. I don't know, I've done this a bunch of times in my life, the calorie tracking. And the one time that when it starts to falter for me is when I have food that I make at home, or when I go out to local restaurants that aren't within the database, because then you have to put in, pasta. That's one thing. Then you have to put in Alfredo sauce. That's the second thing. Then you have to put in grilled chicken. That's the third thing. This does all of that so that all you have to do is push some buttons.
That's neat.
So Lifesum is my choice for this week.
Excellent.
With the premium service that includes the artificial intelligent image recognition.
All right. And last but not least, Russell, what you got for
I
us?
already did this. I was going to talk about Dark.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So it's it's a complete story. It's a game that the storytelling adventure, and like you really are just kind of walking around absorbing this story, and through your phone you get this kind of creepy visual effect as you're walking through kind of tears in reality that appear to be actually there because of how neat augmented reality is. So
with or without headphones?
I would do it with headphones. I think I've done it with headphones every time. You can without, but there's not like a super compelling soundtrack or jump scares or anything like that. But it's nice, a nice little audio background to it. I think it's more like if you've ever played Zombies Run.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
It's kind of similar where it's not a requirement, but it adds just a little bit.
Yeah.
All right.
Excellent.
Well, that is excellent. And I do believe we have reached the end of another episode. I want to thank everybody for listening, of course. And hey, Lori, if people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
I am at Appaholic on the Twitters. That's APPAHOLIK. And I am at Lori Gill at most of the other social things out there.
Awesome. And Russell Hawley, if people are looking for you online and all the cool stuff you're doing, where can they find you?
I am at Russell Hawley pretty much everywhere, and you can find my stuff on all of the Mobile Nation sites.
Excellent. If you're looking for me online, you can find all the things I do, or rather links to all the things I do, at www.chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee. Thank you, everyone, for listening. You are and remain the best audience in the world. Thanks so much to Jim Metzendorf for editing this show and putting up with us every week. We will, of course, be back next week for lots more fun, fashion, friendliness, and feats of fastidiousness. Goodbye, everybody. Have
Good
a great
alliteration.
week and
Good job.
great weekend, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everybody.
All right.